Welcome to Come to Daddy, the podcast for people for whom solipsism is too broad a spectrum. I'm your host, Reuben K, a man so gay I went to the RSPCA and tried to adopt a Doja Cat.
Come to Daddy is me finding a way to investigate the role that parents play in the people we eventually become.
This time, I'm crossing borders, I'm crossing expectations, I'm crossing boxes. I'm in Australia at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, where self-promotion meets self-harm. Anyone who's anyone is here, and that's why my producer Amanda isn't. She's in London, just enjoying the view as capitalism collapses around her. How are you doing, Amanda?
Hello, Come to Daddy listeners. Sorry, not very professional. There is a pug trying to mount me. Not like that, obviously. Thank you for listening and enjoying the podcast. And please like and share and retweet and re-Insta story. I am actually aware that that is not actually a thing, #grandma. But if you are enjoying the podcast, please do spread the word, because we want people to listen and enjoy the genius that is Reuben K.
My guest today puts the new into neurodivergent and the God into dear God, it's me, Margaret. Crossing the gender spectrum in all colours and making us laugh while doing it. Welcome to Come to Daddy,
Hi.
Deanne Smith.
Well, hello. This is incredible.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I love that intro. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. It's one of the great joys of this is coming up with intros and little things to say. I've got one here that is just written. I've just written the second knuckle of personal growth. I don't know what that means, Deanne. I really don't.
So you're getting deep with it is what it means.
So what are you doing here in Melbourne?
Oh, that's a great question. Hanging out, having fun, drinking coffee. And I'm here for the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
You like Melbourne audiences?
Oh, my God. Yeah, I feel, I started coming here maybe 15 years ago. So it really, like Australian audiences, I feel like really influenced my own development as a comedian. Yeah. Things here are very special. Like there's so much nuance to what comedy can be. There's so many different types. It's just different in North America. It's much more homogenous, really. And I think Melbourne audiences have a good comedy education for the most part.
What do you think that is? Do you think it's like an educational issue? Do you think it's a cultural thing?
I think both. Yeah, and the UK influence, but also like the Melbourne Comedy
the UK
Festival
influence on Australia.
On Australia.
Yes.
But also the Melbourne
colonialism.
Colonialism's been great for comedy.
We're spinning it now as an influence. We don't want to say colonial. That's triggering. So we're going to say it's an influence.
It's just an influence.
It's a top note. All right, let's get into it,
let's
Deanne.
Get into it.
This is the parental questionnaire. Quick fire round, speedy answers, please. Names of parents.
My parents are called Bill and Carrie Smith.
Bill and Carrie Smith. Where do they live?
Well, my mom's dead, and my dad lives in upstate New York.
I've never been to New York, upstate New York. I've been to the city, New York.
Oh, yeah. Okay, it's a very different vibe.
Is
upstate. Yeah. 2 hours outside of New York, it is country. A lot of trees, a lot of green hills.
That sounds nice.
Can get a little dicey politically, as things can when you get out of a big city.
Oh, yeah. The more bucolic you get, sort of, it all just gets a bit more.
It's interesting, like what you'll see is like hand-painted signs in people's front yards. And you're like, oh, this can't be good.
Absolutely not.
This can't be good.
I think there's a great moment for any queer person when we go, oh, I see too many handicrafts.
Yeah.
This is like we'll go to it. We'll do a bit of macrame.
Yeah.
We might buy a watercolor here and there, but the minute we get to whittling,
yeah,
that's where we're like, oh.
Or when you see like a sign that's like, say no to Prop 19. You're like, I don't know what Prop 19 is, but I bet it's about guns.
Yeah. Yeah. The handiwork on the sign is immaculate.
Yeah, that's trouble.
You kind of go, oh, but would they also do my bathroom? So how much do you blame Bill and Carrie for how you turned out as a percentage, please?
100p.
Oh, we love it. Firm and committed. So tell me about Mum and Dad, Bill and Carrie. I'm intrigued. I'm interested.
Where do we start?
What are they like as people? Well,
yeah.
Bill obviously now.
Yes, yes. So
Carrie's been very quiet for a while, I assume.
Yeah, I used to do a joke like that. Like, I came out as non-binary. My mom doesn't talk to me anymore. I would be like, no. And then I'm like, well, she died 7 years ago. But other than that, so that's normal, actually. It'd be weird if she was talking to me. It's interesting because this year in my show, I talk a bit about my parents or about my relationship with my dad. My show is all about relationships, romantic relationships in general. And I, tie it to like what we learned in childhood and all that kind of stuff. So what can I say about these people? My mom, very loving, very giving, could talk to anybody. Like a very authentic person, like just very the same with everybody. Also easily delighted by the world. I think I've picked that up as well. Like little tiny things. It'd be like, oh, tomato on the sandwich. Like little delight in the little details of life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And I would say also codependent. She would say that too. She went to CODA, Codependence Anonymous, and less anonymous now that I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
She came into her own like later, like in the last like 10 years of her life, I would say. My parents had a very 50s style, although they weren't of that time, but a very 50s style relationship where dad worked, dad earned all the money. Mom was a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids who drank wine in the garage because life was a lot,
Also, the garage is at a nice kind of cool temperature and humidity that's good for wine.
Yeah, wine was in the box, so she could sneak out there.
Oh, so she was a connoisseur.
Yeah. I mean, dad drank too, but his personality didn't change as much, so it wasn't as noticeable.
What was the change in Mum's personality?
Oh, from beautiful, loving, present mom to drunk, drunk mom. And dad had a traumatic childhood. I'll give all the details. He's never going to hear this.
The next question is, will they listen to this? So
no.
If not, then spill.
Yeah. Here's the thing about my dad. He used to be very into computers. Like in the 90s, we had a computer in the house and we were on the internet, like way before other people. But he never kept up with that. And now he doesn't even have email. If he writes me an email, which he hasn't in years, it comes from my dead mom's account. He only writes, check this out. He only writes in the subject line, all caps. And it's absolutely jarring and horrifying to receive because it will be like you get this email, it's like dead mom's name. And then it's like, hey D, how's it going?
No,
like,
no, absolutely not.
Yeah, all in the subject line. So he has no idea how to find a podcast. This guy, he is loving. He wants to be loving. He is stunted. His dad killed himself. My dad found his dad as a 16-year-old. That will scar a person.
Yeah.
And then my dad went off to Vietnam soon after that.
Oh, yeah.
Collected some more traumas and then raised a family.
I think that's a great qualification to raise a family.
Yeah. So he perceives the world as a dangerous place where anything bad could happen and people are kind of out to get you. I didn't realize until like 10 years ago, just kind of observing my dad, like what I perceived when I was a kid. And I would, because I was a kid, as like strict rules. Like it was like the rules were always changing. You didn't know what they were, but if you fucked them up, that's going to be a problem. So it'd be like the remote control goes here and this goes here. And like, he's not someone who could deal with the chaos of children, really. Yeah. And it was only like 10 years ago watching him kind of freak out about this tablecloth placement and like bringing all this anxiety to it that I was like, oh, this guy just like he has, I don't know if it's OCD. I don't know what it is, but it is very meaningful to him on like a deep level that things should be in their place. Like it really does like stress him out. But as a kid, you don't know that. You're just like, well, there's a ton of stress in the house and I better not fuck up. He's also like always joking around, always trying to like, can't
alleviate the stress that he is currently feeling.
Yeah. Can't go to the bank without making a joke. Like everybody kind of knows him and expects a joke from him. He's stocked with street jokes at all times. Like he just knows jokes,
Ah.
Yeah.
Like an armory of distractions.
Yes. An armory of distractions. And they're always like off color in some way. I'll tell you,
shocking people in that moment is a wonderful way to distract.
Yeah. Well, I think he also learned them when he was like a teenager. I'm trying to think of the Christmas one. He'll be like, every Christmas, do you know why Santa doesn't have any kids?
Why?
Because he only comes once a year.
Yeah.
And then it's down the chimney.
Look, I got to say, the tag is beautiful.
Yeah.
The tag makes it. Because you just think of this like sooty load.
Yeah.
This really ashy, sooty, just like someone had a really good time at the crematorium.
Oh, gross.
Welcome to Come to Daddy. This is the level. So the childhood with your dad, quite tense, always trying to navigate what the rules were.
Yeah.
And how was your mum in that?
I mean, yeah, under his thumb. This was the thing that was really frustrating to me as the youngest. So when I was born, my brother and sister were 11 and 7. So
quite a big age gap.
A big gap. So for me as a little guy, it kind of just felt like, whoa, I showed up on the scene. All these adults, all these big people seem upset. I don't know why. Must be me, of course.
I think all roads lead to Rome. We assume the call's coming from inside the building.
Always. But it was frustrating because I felt like, here's this king, like kind of this emperor with no clothes. And I was like, am I the only one that can see, like, I don't understand why this guy is giving us the rules. And I don't understand why this guy's energy dominates the whole house. Like, there's more of us than him. We're cool. Like, why is this, why is he in charge? But he very much was. I have I unpack it a little bit in my show, but I talk about that my parents were married for 50 years. And I let the audience have that little nice moment. And then I'm like, well, my dad did check the gas miles on my mom's car to make sure she wasn't going too far. So it was, 50 years of like kind of control and oppression and whatever. Yeah.
I guess when you're looking at these two parents, I think as kids, we all sort of model off our parents. When the inklings of your gender journey and your sexuality start to come through, were you looking at them as models?
I wonder about that because I think like I said, they have this very classic kind of 50s dynamic, housewife, guy that goes out and earns the money. I mean, to the point that even he drives home from work to have lunch at home that my mom makes. Like, she was never free of the like duties of being a wife and a mother. And I remember telling my mom when I was little, like 5 years old, kind of my job was to set the table. And I remember telling my mom, I'm not going to get a husband. I don't want a husband. Because it just looked like this guy just tells you what to do and gets waited on. Because he'd come home from work and then mom would make him a drink. Then he sits in the living room and has a drink while she finishes dinner. I mean, very, very kind of classic 50s, like I keep saying, strange. And she was okay with that. She was like, yeah, all right. Yeah, I could see that,
Oh, she was okay with you?
With, like saying, I don't want a husband and this isn't going to happen for me, because I just thought, if this is how it is, no, thank you. But I could identify with, I didn't want either of those roles, obviously. I don't want to be the woman that's waiting on this dude all the time.
And I don't want to be
this angry...
The angry king.
Dude, yeah.
One of them's just sort of like sex work with a side of hospitality.
Exactly.
But it's like either way, you're not connecting. I mean, you might think, oh, I love the idea of having a wife who dotes me hand and foot, but doting isn't connecting. You're not actually having a real relationship. It's still a mercantile thing because you're negotiating it like work.
Do you know what? You're reminding me that recently, like a year and a half ago, I found a little notebook in my mom's sock drawer. So my dad has been unable to deal with my mom's death. He's in a nursing home now, but the house is still there with like all her stuff in it, which my sister and I are slowly clearing out. But anyway, I got cold at the house. I went to get some socks, found a little notebook, like did not look like a diary, little spiral, tiny notebook in my mom's sock drawer. And I opened it up and it was essentially like a quick little diary. She was attempting to quit drinking. So she started, clocking like what she drank that day and how, like, kind of what was going on for her emotionally. And it was fucking fascinating because my family, we don't talk about feelings, and she wouldn't have shared any of that stuff with me. But it was when I was in university, and it really, like, her and my dad were really like struggling to connect, and she was having a very, very hard time suddenly being left alone with this guy that she wanted a close relationship with and didn't. He just wasn't there to connect back with her.
What kind of things were in there?
It was at very quick, like I had these drinks tonight, tried to connect with Bill. He turned me away or something. Like it was rough. Yeah. There was also, it's wild that I should say this, but I don't think my mom would mind. I found what I really can only interpret as like a draft of a suicide note. My mom was writing like what she loved about everyone in the family, and this kind of, I mean, you just don't write that kind of stuff in that way if that's not on your radar. And that was a really interesting moment to think, what if my mom had killed herself? Like, what a different life all of us would have right now, and how like incredibly tragic for my dad.
Well, let's say, would Bill be able to reflect on that or see what that was?
I mean, I can only imagine he would kill himself. I mean, this thing is getting dark, but he's been unable to deal with his dad's death this whole time, you know.
How did your mom die?
She died of complications from COPD and chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder.
Yep.
They were also smokers their whole life. So she had all that kind of stuff. I don't know exactly what it was in the end.
How old was she?
She was just about 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A member of the Dead Dad Club. Here,
oh, yeah.
At 68.
Yeah, it's too young, isn't it?
I always used to think when I was, as growing up, I was like, if I'm going to have kids, I want to be dead by the time they're 30. Because my grandmother, my dad's mum, my dad's mum, stuck around until he was in his late 60s, and it was a bit like a burden, right? And I thought, I want to be clear of it. I want to be not a nuisance, not a burden. And then I lost my dad at 32, and I was like, it's too young.
It's way too young.
Too young to lose a dad, and 68, too young to die.
Definitely. When my mom died, we all have an inner child. And I was like, I thought my inner child was like 8 or something. When my mom died, I felt 2 years old.
3. Yeah.
I was like wailing, like you just miss your mom or your dad on this level that is, I didn't know about it.
The unfairness of it is it's the natural order. So also on some level, I felt like my grief was unjust. But I'm like, everyone goes through this. Why are you having difficulty? This is what's meant to happen. You can't be upset about it. Which is not the advice I would give to someone else in that situation.
Of course not. No, we love to be hard on ourselves for no reason.
Yeah, my therapist just was talking to me about it yesterday. And he was like, well, would you give that advice to someone else? I'm like, no, I know that. I know that I wouldn't say that to someone else, but I'm a different matter. And he's like, yes, but Reuben, that's like self-flagellation and self-obsession at the same time.
Yeah, it is,
like,
isn't it?
Yeah, but my favorite sexual position is on a high horse. So at what age in this environment, at what age do kind of the inklings of your concept of your own gender
that's a good question. I think I didn't have much of a concept of gender when I was a kid because you just don't, right? Like I was just friends with all the neighborhood kids. We're running around. We're one big pack. Nobody's anything really is what it felt like, I think. And then right around puberty is where things started to get dicey, of course, because like I got my period late, which I was happy about. All the other, girls were like, it's all about when you get your period and excited. And I didn't want to do that. And it was actually like, I think really traumatic when it happened because it's like, okay, I'm developing into this person now. And I don't really want to be this.
I can't imagine what that's like to feel like you're on a ride that you don't want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like when you get into a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And you're going, oh, fuck. And you see everyone else is having a really great time with it. And you're like, I don't want to be on this.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be on this.
And to be honest, like it took me, and I have not figured this out and I may never, and that's okay. But I waited ages to get top surgery or something like that because I have never been able to clearly parse out what is actually how I feel, how I would feel in a vacuum as a human being. And what is being astute, being intelligent, looking around and going, hey, this is a misogynistic culture that hates women. Why would I want to be a woman when everyone hates women?
What's your own journey and what's a response?
Exactly. And I don't think it's possible to know because you don't grow up in a vacuum.
No.
But also like having talked through it with partners and stuff, other people would go, you know what, I'm a woman. I understand that we live in a misogynistic patriarchy, and still I'm okay being a woman. They're just kind of like, you're doing something different is going on with you. I'm like, yeah, I guess so.
I guess not only how was it received by Bill and Carrie, but how long did you keep it to yourself before you kind of open the conversation to them?
Well, there's the question of coming out first, right? Which interesting because, like I said, my brother's 11 years older than me. So he saw it before I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
He would come home from California where he lived and be like, hey, do you have anything you want to talk to me about? Like, I have friends that are gay. And I'd be like, get out of my room, you know?
Yeah.
But I came out to my parents when I was like 18. And they were okay with it. This was also a pre-Ellen time. I need to remind people this because it wasn't. What year?
Give us a year so we can contextualize it.
I was 18. It would have been in like 1994.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
It was a different time. And, you know, when I say they were okay, I mean, they continued contributing to college. They didn't kick me out of the house, whatever. My dad probably didn't didn't talk to me for about a year and a half. But
define what not talking to you looks like?
He barely talked to me anyway, so it was fine. It would mean like I would come home and he just wouldn't like greet me or talk to me, but he'd be in the house and I'd be in the house.
Would you get a grunt, a little excuse me, pardon me going past or something? Or was it just like a stone wall?
I mean, I don't really remember.
Not stone wall.
Yeah.
But stone wall.
I don't really remember. But I just know that we didn't have a great relationship anyway, so it didn't like affect me, or I didn't feel that it affected me. But then I remember later, even just a few years after that, they really got on board. And I remember this time when I went shopping with them, and it was like my mom, my dad, my grandma. And I was saying, going shopping, I didn't know any of terms. I didn't know gender dysphoric. I didn't know anything. But I said, I hate going shopping because I love all the guy stuff and it's too big for me. And I hate all the like women's stuff. And it's just really hard for me to find what I want. And we walked into the store and it was the sweetest thing in the world. I remember like, I didn't ask them to do this, but like they'd find like a small like button up shirt or something and be like, hey D, is this what you were talking about? And like my mom would like find ties and be like, I think this one would look really good on you, like that sort of thing. So we didn't openly talk about gender in that way, but they knew kind of how I preferred to present myself and were on board with it.
Do you think maybe they had the language of a tomboy?
Probably, yeah. But, you know, I'm not like particularly into sports either or like tomboy energy. So, yeah. But then when my sister started having kids, the nieces and nephews would be around like, wait a minute, what are you? You know, or you look like a boy, but we call you Aunt D. And then so we'd have those open conversations in the family too, where I'm like, well, you can be, you know, I can be whatever kind of I want to be. And, you know, I remember my little niece started calling me. So I had a girlfriend called Sarah that she started to call Aunt Sarah. And I was like, well, if she's Aunt Sarah, what am I? And she's like, Uncle Aunt D.
Uncle Aunt D.
Uncle Aunt D.
That's fucking great.
Yeah. Thanks for drawing all this out. I forgot about this. Yeah. So my family's been pretty cool, but we haven't like directly addressed anything necessarily.
Is that because it's avoided or because it just doesn't need to be?
I feel like it doesn't need to be.
That's lovely.
Yeah. I mean, my dad knows I have top surgery, which kind of, I didn't know how he'd react because he's losing his memory a bit. He's a little fuzzy on some things.
Like you've had to come out to him 4 times.
He's just starting to lose it a little bit. And I didn't know, you know, what he would think about it at all. And he was just like, oh, well, do you feel good? And I was like, yeah. He's like, all right.
The best.
Yeah. And that was it.
I remember, I've said this before on the pod, when I told my mum, her response was, it's 12:30 at night, Reuben. Go to bed, I'll buy you condoms in the morning.
Really?
And then the next day she took me out and said, I don't actually know why you told me. It's none of my business who you sleep with, just like it's none of your business who I sleep with. To which I said, well, who are you sleeping with? And she said, none of your business.
That's really funny.
It's a snappy family.
That's really funny.
The K household.
How old were you when you came out?
14.
Okay. And did she go buy you condoms?
No, never came through on the promise, but I didn't need them till I was 18.
Okay.
Yeah. It was my stepfather just looked me in the eye and went, well, duh.
Oh.
Which is great. Bless. And Dad kind of stumbled a bit. Dad had a bit of a shit reaction, but made up for it.
Yeah.
But like, it just took us a while.
But you do feel like you worked it out with him before he died?
Yeah, the minute he got diagnosed, he lost all his anti-confrontation and all his fear, and his bullshit meter just skyrocketed. So I went, I got no time for this. And I was like, well, I got no time for this. So we got this amazing 3 years of getting like a father and a son back.
Oh, that's incredible.
It was great.
That's important.
It really was like a lifetime that we got, which is lovely. How's your relationship with Bill now?
It's interesting. So he is in a nursing home, like I said. I would say that it's good. I used to joke around with my mom when she was still alive. When she was still alive, of course. When did I have that? I still joke around with her, but I was like, you know what? I was like, you're going to die. And this guy, I'm pointing into the living room. He can't hear me, right? I'm like, this guy is just going to keep kicking because he has all this shit to work out. Like, you're good. You can go. This guy, this fucking guy. And it's true. He's treated his body like garbage. He is still kicking in this nursing home, but it gives me the opportunity. I try to visit him about once a month. You know, I'm traveling a lot, so it's difficult. But our visits in the last few years have been really good. But by really good, I mean, I think in some other families, probably just baseline good. Like I've been able to hear him say things like, thank you for coming to visit me. You know, things like thank you, things like I appreciate, things like this little bit of openness and connecting. And a few years ago, right before he went into the nursing home, we had what I thought was an incredible conversation. I was taking him to the hospital for something. And he was like yelling at me as I was trying to park the car about, like it was this anxiety coming out, but the way that it does, which is like picking everything apart and yelling. And I'm like, this is not my life. I don't have any relationships like this where I would tolerate someone yelling at me. I don't yell at anybody. Like this is just not how I do things. And I'm an adult now and I can decide, you know, what is in my periphery, what kind of atmosphere I'm in. And I went a little too hard, though. I did regret this, and I apologized to him after. But I was like, you cannot yell at me. I'm like, I will not have you treat me how you treated mom. I'm not going to stand for it. But I talked to them both about that when they were alive. Like, they knew how I felt about their relationship. But it was a bit of a low blow because, you know, she had died at that point. But also true. Anyway, he goes and has his appointment. I take him back in the car, and this may not seem like a big deal, but for my dad, who's very regimented, this was a huge deal. I was like, you know, there's a place I really like in Owego, the neighboring town. Can I take you out to lunch at this place? So it was, first of all, shocking that he even said yes, because normally it would be like, no, we only go to the places that I already know. And, you know, so, but we were in the car. We had this drive, which I think was really useful because we're both staring forward. We don't have to stare at each other. The landscape is changing. You know, car rides are great for intimate conversations. And I apologized to him. I said, I'm sorry that I said that, you know, about mom, but it's really hard for me, you know, if you're yelling at me. And I kind of explained all that. I don't have relationships like this. I don't want relationships like that. And I'm always trying to give him therapy. I'm saying it for him, but I'm also saying it for me. And I'll say things like, you know, I've learned about myself that when I feel stressed out, sometimes I lash out at other people, you know, but it's like very basic shit, but I'm trying to give him something. And in this car ride, he was able to be open and like hear this. And he was like, yeah, you know, I think maybe I do that too sometimes. And we had like a reparative conversation, which was incredible. He tried something new at this cafe that he let me pick and talked about, I think your mother would have liked this place. And it's small stuff, but it's honestly meaningful and special. So since then we've had only good visits. When he gets cranky with me though, he did get cranky with me a few months ago. And I just said, hey, you know, if you're feeling tired or you're having a bad day, I don't have to be here right now. Like I can go. And I'm saying it nice, but underneath it is like, I won't be treated like garbage. And then he's like, no, it's okay. You know, and then he gets nicer about things. But yeah, so I would say I'm glad he's still alive. I'm glad we're having a good relationship. And I know it's not my job, but I'm still trying to trying to work on him a little bit, give him little bits of therapy and hope that he can leave this world feeling a little more taken care of and a little bit less like everything is out to get him and it's, you know, a horrible place.
It's really beautiful. All right.
Yes.
Now we come to the pick and mix.
Oh, okay.
Pick and mix, pick and mix. It's time for us to do pick and mix.
And today you have chosen, drum roll please, Amanda.
It's quite hard.
There's a lot of saliva on that microphone
Got
now.
a sore tongue.
No, it's so unfair.
Deanne, you have chosen, it's so unfair.
Mm-hmm.
What is a call your parents have made that you feel needs revision?
Okay, here we go. It's really just this one time, and I'm hoping to say it here. It feels in many ways so petty, but I'm going to say it here, and maybe I'll let it go. Maybe I'll
Go
finally
for it.
let it
Purge.
go. Okay. When I was in my 20s, I was living in Baltimore. I was getting ready to move to Mexico, where I was going to teach English for a while and just hang out. My parents owned a home, which it's still freaking there. That a giant, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom. Yeah, just a big old suburban house, an attic. There's a basement, plenty of room. And my dad would not allow me to store my things, whatever things I had as an early 20-year-old living in Baltimore before I moved to Mexico, would not allow me to keep things in their house, which pissed me off so much. And I didn't understand there's so much room. And I think I was probably upset, and my mom too, because she just went along with it. But she went along with everything. That was their dynamic. And I guess it really, it hurt my feelings. And it made me feel like, even at that age, 20, when you would hope you would still have some family stability to rely on, it just felt like, if you're on your own, good luck.
Next up on the Pick and Mix, you have chosen
Parental advisory.
AKA, do as I say, not as I do.
parental advisory.
Yeah.
Give me some advice from Bill and Carrie.
Okay. This is incredible. This is going to run the spectrum. My dad, one time, and I have a joke about this in my show, one time and one time only, I was on the phone with him. I asked him for advice. I just thought, let me try to make this old guy feel useful and let me try to connect and see what's up. I was having a hard day. And I was like, hey, do you have any advice for me? And it was illuminating. His answer was worth 10 years of therapy for me understanding my childhood. He goes, well, when I have hard feelings, I just think, there's nothing I can do about that. And I stop feeling them. That was legitimately his advice. It gets worse. Check this out. So I was like, wait a minute. I go, are you saying don't feel feelings? And then he actually said this. He goes, yep. When they pop up, push them back down. But then he gave a dirty laugh. He goes, not like that. Because he was immediately making a boner reference. This is the only time I ever asked my dad advice, and that was his advice. Don't feel your feelings. And then essentially, like, don't feel them so hard that even talking about them makes you have to make a joke about boners. Let's get out of here. We're moving on.
Okay, this is the final challenge.
Okay.
Hercules.
Oh my gosh. What is it?
This is Shall I Be Mother?
Shall I be mother?
You look into my eyes and imagine that I am Bill or Carrie or an odd science lab amalgamation of both. And what
Okay.
would you say to them?
Oh, this is really good stuff. I would say, I'm really gazing into your eyes. Thank you for putting me on this planet and keeping me alive and raising me to the best of your ability. And I looked away from you right now because I'm going to get really real.
Okay.
I was about to say that I am attempting to live my life in a way that heals me of certain traumas, but I also think about healing them through me. I like to think about that stuff going backwards because I'm not having kids. It's not going forward in that way. And hope to see you on the other side.
That's really beautiful. Deanne Smith, thank you for coming to Daddy.
Thank you. What an intense experiment. I had to look away.
It's a lot, isn't it? It's unexpectedly a lot, and it's an emotional time here at Come to Daddy headquarters. But putting all that aside, because you don't want to feel them, Deanne Smith, where can listeners of the pod find you?
Oh, good luck to you guys. I'm a real push-pull kind of comedian. I bring you in, I push you away. I'm probably most active on Instagram. I don't have a TikTok yet. I have a Twitter. I have a website that's never updated. You know, good luck to you. Deanne Smith. Truly, Google it.
Deanne Smith, 1D, 2 N's, Smith.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to Daddy.
Thank you. What a pleasure.